Erin Cronican is an award-winning actor, producer, and director who is based in New York City. She is a founding member of the Seeing Place Theater and has served as its executive artistic director since 2011. For the Seeing Place, she has produced 41 main stage productions, 19 of which she also directed. Erin is also an NYIT-nominated actor for her work in The Seeing Place's The Maids, Off-Broadway, Danny in the Deep Blue Sea, Sistas, This One's for the Girls. Favorite roles with the Seeing Place Theater have been My Name is Rachel Corrie, Othello, Closer, Getting Out, Boy Gets Girl, A Lie of the Mind, The Laramie Project, and regional favorites have been the last 5 years, Angels in America, Camelot, South Pacific, and Evita. Cultural Capital says her performance of Roberta was the most genuine and touching performance I have seen this year. Peter Felicia?
Peter Felicia, yeah.
Peter Felicia. The finest performances I saw this month came from Erin Cronican and Brandon Walker. I was so impressed at their naturalness. These kids weren't acting, but had just happened to become the characters, that's all. I look forward to seeing more at the Seeing Place. And from the Daily Actor, it's always wonderful to still be surprised by someone I've seen several times in the past. It's hard to take your eyes off Erin Cronican. So welcome, Erin Cronican.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with us.
I'm very humbled by my own press there.
So you have a number of websites which I've been able to share with the rest of the collective, including your personal website, erincronican.com, the Seeing Place Theater's website, seeingplacetheater.com, your blog, erinchronicles.com, and then your YouTube channel, Erin Cronican. So I sent you an email asking you just to keep some things in mind with this interview. And so some of those things were starting with, what is your artistic vision? That's a really difficult question, is it not?
It is, but it's something that I have thought about for a long time as an artist. I kind of teach that to my students when I'm doing career coaching, because it's the one thing that can tether you when everything is crazy and wild, and there are all kinds of different types of storytelling, and different people that you're working with. Having an artistic mission can really focus you and help you to know which projects to say no to as well as which ones to say yes to. So, and I have a little dog back here saying hello for those of you who are watching on camera. So for me, it's really about visceral storytelling. So storytelling that makes an impact. And artistically, I also want people to feel like they're learning something about themselves through the work that I'm doing, and that I'm getting to learn something about myself through the work I'm doing. Most of the work I'm passionate about has a social justice impact. So I kind of find projects that allow me to make some sort of statement about the state of the world and the people in it. I'm also a fan as well of empowering people. So the art that I like to create, it makes me feel good to have people watch and be inspired by it for their own lives and where they might take their learning and apply it to their life.
So for most people that are unaware, I spent about 3 months with the Seeing Place Theater. And before I go into that, because I do think that's an interesting story of getting to know you and getting involved with your group, the thing that I took away most from working with you was that you see theater, and I now see theater as a relationship between those making the production happen and the audience.
Yeah.
Before that, there are phases you go through as an actor where you, perhaps, for me, it was definitely being a ham and a performer and being funny, and then later discovering drama and seeing the beauty in not just making people laugh, but making them cry and think. And then making that a real thing, more of a Meisner type thing. And then joining your group, I really, really started to clearly see that, what you're talking about, that you shouldn't just be up there for necessarily just entertainment. It should be something that can grow from there, right?
I think so. And I think that there's a value in entertainment for entertainment's sake. I think we still learn about ourselves when things are purely entertainment. I don't want to discount that, especially in times of crisis. We find that having an escape can be really good for our mental health, and there's a value in that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, the background with meeting Erin was I was still in Pennsylvania, starting to work as a paid actor, but I had to travel about 3.5 hours in various directions to get that work. And so I emailed your group. I don't know if it was a backstage thing or what, but you had said no jobbers in the ad. And so I was like, what's a jobber? There are all these terms in our theater vernacular in the city that I didn't know at the time. So this wasn't a paid thing where you're going to be part of a rep theater. This was more of a learning experience and then getting to be on stage later on.
For those of us that are not in the theater world, what is a jobber?
Right.
You now dropped that twice.
Yeah, there are, especially in New York City, which is a commercial market, there is a tendency for actors to jump from job to job and not spend any sort of real connected time with the theater companies that they work with. And we're a repertory company, so we fill an ensemble first and then pull our actors from that ensemble to serve the shows in a longer season. So if someone wanted to come to us for just 2 months, they would be very disappointed. Yeah.
Well, thank you for clarifying that, because I'm ignorant.
Pardon me, I'm multitasking. I'm trying to pull up something I can put into the chat window here. But please stop me if you want to interject with a question. But so again, could you articulate your vision just in a couple sentences, if possible?
If the artistic vision that you just asked?
Yeah.
Yes. So artistically, I have a vision for work that's meaningful to me and to other people. For me, that usually has some sort of social justice component to it, and something that also is empowering for those who are listening or watching. Can they go out and make a positive change in their life or other people's lives based on the art they're witnessing?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And then now that we are in a quarantine, this has stifled a lot of us, although it's also, I would say, helped grow our creativity in a lot of ways. Because how do you stop that force? If you are a creative spirit, there's just no way to stop it entirely. What are you doing with your time?
Quite a bit. People get really creative, like you said. We, as a theater company, unfortunately had to halt our artistic programming in terms of putting on productions, because all we do is live theater. But we've replaced that time with online education and outreach courses. And that's taking quite a bit of time to put those together and then market them and find the right audience for them. They're affordable. A lot of them are donation based. The idea is to keep people connected through the power of theater. And education is really easy to do online. And that's been a real positive force from this quarantine. I don't know that we would have had the time or the energy or the bandwidth to put together this type of education program were we not in this kind of standstill. So in a way, we're grateful. We're certainly not grateful overall. It's a horrible thing that's happening in the world right now, but we're trying to make the best of it.
So where were you? What were you? You have all these various things on your plate. What was it that was in your immediate future before this all went down? Like, what were your plans? What were you working on?
We were just in our pre-production process, which we call Discovery, on the next play of our season, which is Exit the King by Eugene Ionesco, which is a French play. That's been translated into English. We did about 2 weeks of online rehearsals before we realized, live theater's not coming back anytime soon. So we decided that we would put that on hold and postpone it until we know for sure what's going to be happening. And that's when we turned our attention to the education program. One thing that also makes my theater company different is that our ensemble trains together once a week, and we still do that online. That training, we do it online via Zoom, and we found now, after almost 2 months of this quarantine, how to best do it, how to use this technology to still be working together. So that's taken up quite a bit of time.
Still 3 hours?
4 hours, yeah.
4 hours.
From 7 to 11. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those weekly things, those weekly exercises, meetings, rehearsal type things that you do on Monday nights proved to be too much for me as an actor, a working actor, because there's so much homework that was involved, because you are doing so much, even though it's once a week. So while I was with you, we were doing the relaxing exercises, and reading. An actor prepares. There's a lot of stuff that you and Brandon were putting on our plates. So yeah, and then just having worked with Will, we did a play the end of last year together. That was the first time we did one together, and I didn't see him before he was with you guys, but I've been told that he was great in Shakespeare. I can only imagine he's grown immensely from working with you.
He's been really wonderful to work with. I count myself very lucky to have him as a part of our group.
So how did you end up getting involved in the arts?
The short answer is watching the movie West Side Story at home made me want to be a part of musical theater and theater. The slightly longer version is I was lucky enough as a child to have been taken to see some youth theater by my school. My elementary school took our class to the theater, and these student actors were performing, and then afterwards would sign autographs out in the lobby, fully in costume. And I was like, I want to do that. I can memorize lines. That would be cool. And so the combination of seeing the movies and going to the play made it seem possible for me. So from the age of 9, I've been acting.
Wow, and encouraged by your parents?
Sort of. They were not artists at all. This was very new to them, so it was more, I just sort of said, this is what I'm going to do. And they said, okay, as long as you're committed, we'll support you. So they were very supportive, but certainly didn't drive any of the training or drive any of the enthusiasm for art. No.
And you are not yet a parent, correct?
I am not.
Okay.
No.
Minus that little thing that's next to you.
Yeah, exactly. A
So,
pet parent, dog parent.
That was a question Celine had. She's being a parent. She's found her experience being an artist, a freelancer, and now a mom and a wife to be a little bit challenging. So she was really curious about whether or not you had any responsibilities for other humans.
No, and I have so much respect for parents, especially in the theater industry. I don't think it's particularly forgiving or supportive of mothers. I'm sure that's not just the arts industry that's the case, but we have such vigorous schedules and they're all over the place. There's no way to guarantee a schedule, which I think can be very hard for parents. I would imagine. I would defer to your judgment and your thoughts on that. I do affectionately term my theater company as my child. Unfortunately, my child is stuck in the terrible twos and has not grown in 10 years. No, it's very, working in this sector, it's very temperamental, but fun and challenging, so.
Yeah. Well, while you're not a parent, Celine, you both share some things in common, being, entrepreneurs, artists. Did you have any particular questions for her?
Well, I was actually looking at your musical theater side and trying to, as you said, you started when you were 9. So where did your training go from there and how did it grow?
Well, like I mentioned, my parents were not artistic in any way, and they had no clue what a budding actor, musical theater performer would need. They were adamant about me not using any of my after school time for anything but homework, or playing tennis. That was where they wanted me to really focus my time as a tennis player. So I didn't take any classes outside of school. I didn't get voice lessons. I didn't take dance. I did everything through school until I went to college. And then I started having professional voice lessons at that point. I was lucky enough that my school at the time had a robust vocal program, my high school, and a great advanced drama program. And my middle school had a choir program as well. So I was singing through school, but I didn't get that professional training until I was technically in college. And then since then, of course, I've been training weekly, have wonderful coaches, and but yeah, so I'm kind of a poster child for, there's sometimes a fear that that you're too late as getting instruction as an adult. I think that I am lucky that I have a natural ease with music. I have an ear for it. I have a vocal apparatus that serves me well. So I did come to the table with that, and I claim no victory from that. That's just what I was born with. But I am the poster child for, you can, as an adult, get great training and make a professional career. It's never too late.
I agree. There's always the natural aptitude, but there's also just the work, right? Like talent isn't just something you're born with. It's something that you work at on a daily, weekly, monthly, short-term to long-term goals.
Absolutely.
All right.
And I think that staying curious in your training helps to push that education along. So you're not just taking in what your coaches are telling you, your teachers are telling you, you're also doing work on your off time with curiosity. That's really served me well, I think.
I think so. And then, so you have your theater company, and then you also have had, obviously, you're based in New York, so you have different opportunities than other parts of the country and other parts of the world. And so you were drawn to doing theater and founding this theater company. Where did that come from? At what timeline in your career did you decide, I'm gonna go off and do this?
I've been producing for a while. I'm originally from San Diego, and I helped run a nonprofit arts organization there that was a service organization, kind of like the Actors Fund in terms of resources, but not financial resources. They were more of a service resource organization, and we produced readings and we produced festivals of new plays. So I've been on producing teams for a while. In New York, I started to notice, and I can't claim 100% of the idea of the Scene Place. It was co-founded by Brandon Walker, who is, this was his brainchild, and I was lucky enough to get swept up in as a founder. But we just started to notice that the theater that we were seeing in New York City didn't match what was in our heads, what we were expecting to find. We were really surprised by the commercialism. We were surprised by what felt to us much of the time like a cookie cutter sort of approach to art, which is understandable in the commercial model. And we found it very difficult on the independent level to find the kind of art that made us excited. And furthermore, in New York City, it is uncommon for smaller theater companies to do master works. So works of theater that have been tested, that are well written, that are Pulitzer Prize winners, or have been on Broadway or off Broadway. Where the off Broadway scene in New York is an incubator for new work. So what happens is the actors end up being sort of like guinea pigs toward the goal of developing a piece. A lot of things are tested out by the writer and director to bring a piece to life. And the process of the actor is kind of put to the side in terms of determining how the art is created. So we sought to create a theater company that put actors at the center of the storytelling and honored their craft as being central to that. Of course, we have directors. Of course, there are writers involved. But an actor-driven process ensures that the story that you're seeing on stage is unique to that ensemble. And we're committed to never telling the story the same way twice, so that the next day we're different living, breathing organisms. The audience is a different living, breathing organism, and we create something new in that dynamic every day.
Very cool.
You know, also, you mentioned San Diego, and Joshua and Celine, actually, yeah, all of us met in San Diego.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah. So Celine, she and I have a long story, and she's going to be a featured artist on this as well. But yeah, we met in Balboa Park, and then Joshua and I met via a mutual friend named Christina while he was living in OB. And so, yeah, where did you
look
spend?
like you're an OB kind of guy, Joshua.
He does.
I can see it. I really see it.
Now I'm a Bay Area kind of guy.
Yeah.
Been up here for the last 11 years. Met my wife, and yeah, another time for me. I'm very fascinated by your story and what you're doing. And
Thank you.
kudos, by the way. It's fantastic. It's one of the reasons that Isaac and I started this over a decade ago, was, to connect with fellow artists and visionaries and poets and writers and actors and musicians that were doing something good and having what we collectively called or coined the conversation instead of a conversation, and how art and all of the things I just mentioned drive to and create beauty and truth. And that's pretty much the background of the show is, while there's so many myriad people that that we've all obviously know and have met, and there's so much travesty and injustice and shit going on in the world, and it is people like yourself that are doing good things that inspire and educate and remind us that, even in the midst of a pandemic, we rely on the actors and the musicians and the playwrights and the authors and the poets to continue to tell the story that brings us together instead of driving us apart. So thank you, by the way, for being on the show, and and for sharing a bit of your story with us. And I look forward to see what happens next.
You're welcome. And that was so beautifully put. Thank you. I'm very inspired.
Speaking of San Diego, you were on Veronica Mars.
I was twice, 2 episodes.
Which was being shot like a couple blocks away from me at one point when I was in OB. Cool. So was that a fun experience? What was it like working with Kristen Bell, etc.?
It was great. In both scenes that I was in, I wasn't directly working with Kristen, though I was on set with her. And it was a very quick experience. I worked mostly with Christopher B. Duncan, who played Weedman. Weedman, and I was his assistant. And Weedman was the bad guy who ran the security firm at Kane Software. And it was just, at the time, we didn't know how iconic the show was going to be. So for me, I was new to on-camera work. I had done 1 student film when I booked that show. And interestingly, I did an episode in season 1 and an episode in season 2. I had just moved to New York when season 2 was being shot, and got called back a month after moving here to do the recurring role. So I felt really very grateful that they were willing to bring me back to do that, because they didn't have to do that. But it was wonderful. And
look at that sharp left turn into failure that your life took after.
Exactly.
You also were in a movie. I didn't know this until examining your website a little bit more closely. I'm a big Paul Giamatti fan, and
Oh,
I
yeah?
love the movie Cold Souls, but I didn't realize you were in it.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
were
that was
featured.
really fun. Yeah, I was featured in the film as Michael Tucker's assistant. I've got the assistant thing down in all of the theater scenes. So when he's doing Chekhov, I'm in all of those scenes. Yeah, it was really a master class in watching acting. One short, very very short anecdote from that. There was a scene where he finally gets into the meat of the character Uncle Vanya, who he's playing, and the camera is rotating around him for this big, huge monologue, and then he steps over the track that the camera is appearing on, is riding on, and then finishes the monologue. And they cut the scene, and then they're like, "Why don't you pick it up from where you cross over the track?" Now, in theater, the actor would say, "Great, can I just take it back to the beginning of the monologue so I can really get there?" And in theater, we'd say, "Fine, but time is money, and film strip is money on a film set." So he just asked for a moment and then launched right into it mid monologue, exactly where they needed him to be. And it was flawless. And I was like, oh, it's a huge difference between film and theater anyway, in terms of how you express the work you're doing. The character creation is the same, but the expression is different. And that was really phenomenal. Also, it was another fun anecdote just with that. As he's like, the camera's moving around him, he also moves his head and scans the room in this very artistic, gorgeous shot. And then when it was clear that the camera was done and they had the shot, he just stared me right in the eyes and goes, "Erin." like acknowledging that I was just staring at him in awe. And I was like very embarrassed and excited, and I was like, oh, he knows my name, how exciting. But yeah.
Anyone who hasn't seen that film,
I haven't. I hadn't even heard of it, and I thought I saw everything that Paul Giamatti was in. So
Yeah,
this
it's
is awesome.
Fun indie film, very well directed, by Sophia Barthus, and it's just very. It's a fun kind of sci-fi dystopian kind of film.
But
perfect for the apocalypse. Sorry, Isaac.
No, just brilliant turn from Paul Giamatti. He's like, that scene. My favorite part of the film is the part she just described. Is watching him. I don't want to give anything away because you should just watch it. But watching him play various levels of competency as an actor, and just switch back and forth. It was mind blowing.
Yeah, he plays a version of himself in the film. He plays the character Paul Giamatti, which is very fun to watch. It's kind of like a being John Malkovich sort of idea.
Will you give me the name one more time?
Cold Souls.
Cold Souls. Okay.
Yeah.
And Erin, I get the feeling like, we're getting into a role. We could probably just keep going now, but we're at the end of the time that we have. So there's a lot of other things I wanted to share about you and ask you about, but I'm grateful for this time that you gave us.
This has been so much fun. Thank you.